What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here. We're going my core plays for week 17 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. If you enjoy, make sure you like down below, subscribe channel for brand new. Let's dive right into it. And as always, we'll start with the quarterback position. And I have a very small pool here because this is a very small slate compared to most main slates because we've had games all week long. Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to have 3 on Saturday, which I will not be doing a breakdown video for, but just know I'm going to be heavily invested in the Broncos, Bengals, and the Rams for the most part. Got some interest in the Cardinals too, but that's all I got for it pretty much. But 4 quarterbacks here for the Sunday main: Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Jordan Love. Now keep in mind, with this being such a small slate, ownership is going to get even more condensed on the popular chalk plays, so it's going to be even more difficult to get different this week. Now these are probably going to be your highest owned quarterbacks. I do want to mention, if Anthony Richardson ends up being out, which he has not practiced all week long. I'm recording this on Friday, so obviously if this happens to come out later in the day or on Saturday, I don't know that yet. But if he happens to be out, Joe Flacco, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, those stacks are absolutely free this week, and I would have some interest. But yeah, we have Baker, Darnold, and Love probably going to be your 3 highest quarterbacks, 3 highest owned quarterbacks, I should say, because these are the 3 best games, and they're not that expensive, and it's super easy to stack with all 3. So let's move over to the stacks here so we can kind of break that down more. But if I was playing one quarterback in cash games, it's really hard for me to pick. I have Baker Mayfield projected the best out of this bunch, but you can't go wrong with any of them. If you guys ever do an access to the sheet here and everything that I do show you, there is a lot more. I stat out the entire slate for showdowns, main slates, the 3-game Saturday slate, whatever it may be. We have NASCAR coming soon, but I got the projections, optimizer, ownership projections, cheat sheets going over cash games, tournaments, all the good stuff. In order to find it, link can be found down below. But just got a few teams here, and I will show you guys the scatter plot here in a second. I think this is just a really good way to help visualize like what you're looking at mathematically when you're looking at the entire slate. Just kind of condenses everything into like, here, this is what the slate looks like to everybody when you're looking at it on paper. So north-south, we have the DraftKings ownership, and that can obviously change by the time Sunday rolls around. And then east to west, we have the team total for each team. So the Vegas implied team total, pretty simple. So if we look in the upper right quadrant, you're going to see the teams with higher implied team totals and the projected high ownership, because that tends to have a lot of correlation. The teams that are going to score a lot of points, people tend to play players from those teams. And as you can see, we have an extreme outlier this weekend with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a near 30-point implied team total versus the Carolina Panthers. They have Sterling Shepard out. They have K. Dotton out, and everybody looks good. Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, who's kind of emerged over the past month now. And then we have Payne Durham stepping in, who looked fine on Sunday Night Football. Like, yeah, there's nothing really not to like. It's a good matchup versus the Panthers. They're going to be chalk, but man, on a slate like this where ownership's going to be condensed, I mean, I'm just going to have to eat it in some places. You also have Minnesota and Green Bay, very similar implied. I think they actually have the same exact implied team total, maybe like a half a point off, whatever it is, 1-point spread, I think, in that game. They're going to be chalkier, not as chalky as Tampa Bay, in my opinion. Obviously, that could sway a little bit, but that game looks incredible. Now, I do want to mention that we just got news like a couple of minutes ago, and I'm not going to, while I'm recording, I'm not going to go fix this. You're just going to take my word on it. Jalen Hurts is out, so projections would change a little bit. I'm assuming their team total. I don't know if their team total is going to change too much, to be honest. I mean, like, Jalen Hurts is, I mean, he's good. He doesn't suck or anything, but I think Kenny Pickett can keep that offense going anyway. I know they lost last week versus Washington, but I mean, they still put up points. Saquon Barkley's going to do his thing. They still have an elite offensive A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Maybe the ownership just lowers a little bit, so they go in that bottom right quadrant, but Indianapolis is down there, Miami, Buffalo. The only problem with Buffalo is you never know who to stack with Josh Allen. And then after that, don't really see anything crazy. I think the Indianapolis ownership would probably go up a little bit if Joe Flacco's in, because it's going to boost the passing game, and Flacco is cheap, so that's something to keep in mind. These currently have Anthony Richardson in at quarterback, which he has not practiced all week, so there's a good chance he could end up missing. The bottom left teams are just low implied team totals and low ownership players. Now, just because the team is in that range doesn't mean you can't play any of the players from that. Like, sure, Jacksonville sucks. I don't want to play Tank Bigsby. I don't want to play ETN, those kind of guys. But Brian Thomas Jr. looks really good on that team. So I don't mind playing players from there. It just takes it from a whole team perspective when we're kind of talking about stacking, if that makes sense. And then the second scatter plot is comparing it from my projections for quarterback, wide receiver, tight end projections for that team compared to the ownership. And once again, I mean, Tampa Bay just projects amazing this week. And if I added the running back projections in there, it would be even better. I might even be off the screen. They look good on paper. Obviously, that doesn't always translate to real world, but I mean, the only thing we can do is play the game on paper before it actually happens. And then we have Minnesota and Green Bay down there, and then kind of the same teams towing the line. I do want to mention Carolina and the New York Jets. Those are the two teams kind of straddling the line, that red line right there. So I don't think they look too bad in tournaments. If you don't want to play Aaron Rodgers, which I totally get, you could play Josh Allen naked. They're running back with two of the Jets wide receivers and Devonta Adams. Garrett Wilson, maybe Breece Hall, with however you want to construct that, that'd be fine. And if you don't want a full stack Tampa, maybe you just run it back with Mike Evans or Bucky Irving, and you look at, I mean, you don't have to look at Bryce Young, but if you did, you have Chuba Hubbard, Adam Thielen, those kind of guys, Jalen Coker. That's one way to get a little bit different. The ownership will certainly be much lower as well, but it kind of looks like the same chart as far as team total and projections, because those are going to correlate quite a bit, but you guys get the idea there, and hopefully that helps you. I really like looking at this because it just helps me visualize it. Okay, let's start our build here, and as I always say, I'm not here to hand feed you guys a lineup. I am simply just going through the process that I go through when I'm building my single entry 3 max type lineups. You can use a similar process to this and strategy to your own favorite plays. Like for example, if I go with Sam Darnold in this lineup, you could easily go with Jordan Love and build a very similar type of lineup. Same with Baker Mayfield, same with Josh Allen, goes for most things. So we pretty much have 3 quarterbacks that I want to pick from: Baker, Darnold, and Jordan Love. I'm going to go with Sam Darnold here because I think this lineup could end up looking pretty fun. And we'll move on to running back. And it's not as small of a pool as the quarterback pool, but I still say it's pretty condensed. If we are looking at cash games, I think there's 2 guys that are going to garner quite a bit of ownership. Number 1 will be Bucky Irving. He's just in the nut spot here versus Carolina. They have the highest implied team total in the slate, 29.5. They're playing at home. They're 8-point favorites. They need to win to help keep their playoff chances alive because they do not control their own destiny now with their loss versus the Dallas Cowboys and the Atlanta Falcons beating the New York Giants. They might get some help from Washington, potentially beating the Falcons in Sunday Night Football, but that'll definitely be a big game for Tampa, even though they're not in it. Bucky Irving has been awesome this year. 5.5 yards per carry. The dude's just a really good NFL running back, and the Panthers are allowing the most points per game in the running back position. James Conner went nuclear last week, 140 rushing yards per game. I mean, there's really no reason not to like Bucky. Sure, he splits the backfield with Rachaad White. They'll both get theirs, and I actually don't mind Rachaad White, but he'd be more of the tournament play. Then also in cash, Aaron Jones is $6,200, just getting pieces of this game, and he's dynamic. They'll use him in the passing game, they'll use him in the run game. He'll get goal line work, high implied team total. I mean, at that price point, he definitely looks really good. After that, it's kind of open season. If it's not Chuba Hubbard, it's Saquon Barkley in your 3 running back lineups. No Jalen Hurts this week, so he's probably not going to get pushed out of touchdowns. And Saquon Barkley, that has happened to a lot this year. I forget the exact number off the top of my head, but he's fallen down at like the 1 yard line quite a bit, and Jalen Hurts takes those touchdowns. So Barkley should be in for a huge workload here versus Dallas. I think the last time they played Dallas, he did bust, but that's obviously a completely different situation. They're playing at home, 7.5-point favorites. And if I had to sit here and tell you that Saquon Barkley is good at football and the Dallas Cowboys really aren't that good at football, I mean, we're probably wasting our time here. Josh Jacobs, he'll get a ton of work. As always, he's obviously not extremely efficient, but I mean, the volume of work he gets, he's been used in the passing game as well. He'll be in play. I like that price on FanDuel. Like, he is $1,300 cheaper than Saquon Barkley on FanDuel. Does he project as well? No, but I mean, point per dollar wise, he looks really good. Jonathan Taylor is also in play here. Whoever the quarterback is, it doesn't matter. I don't think he's going to get as many rushing yards as he did last week, but it's a great spot versus the New York Giants. Devon Chan, just another guy that gets a ton of work, and Cleveland's pretty much given up on their season, and with his involvement in the passing game, just keeps that floor extremely high. And Raheem Mostert's a corpse, so I don't really think we have to worry about him. James Cook is strictly a pivot off of Josh Allen if you want to get different in tournaments. Said that last week. James Cook ended up having a pretty decent day. Josh Allen did not, so that's just one way to help get yourself different. And I think we've pretty much hit every running back here. Okay, let's grab a couple. And since I am going with the Vikings stack, I'm probably not playing much of the Tampa Bay passing attack. At least that's what I would imagine. And I don't think I'm going to play Aaron Jones in this build. So I think it makes sense to play Bucky Irving just because we need exposure to the Buccaneers somehow, right? So $6,700. That isn't exactly breaking the bank. I would love to play Aaron Jones at that price point, but I'm already going to play probably Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison in this lineup. So I don't think I'm going to go that route. But really, I mean, we could look at Chuba Hubbard, but I don't know if I want to double running back in that game. So honestly, we could just go with James Cook here. I mean, we might have to drop that because honestly, if I'm trying to play Justin Jefferson, we are running out of money quick. We'll see how much value play we can get to, but we'll leave James Cook in for now. If we have to pivot, we will. And this is always a bit redundant because we already talked about the stack. So, I mean, if we like the quarterbacks, we like the wide receivers. If we like Sam Darnold, We look specifically at Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison first. I love Mike Evans on this slate, but if I am playing Darnold, Darnold's not running the ball, so I'd have to specifically look at those two first, because the only way scoring points is if either his receivers or tight ends, whoever it is, are catching the ball from him. So obviously in the lineup, we're going with Jefferson, Addison, fantastic plays. If we're playing Baker Mayfield, how's Baker Mayfield? I mean, he runs a little bit, but how's he scoring points? He's scoring points through Mike Evans, McMillan, usually Cade Otton, but Payne Durham this week, or dump offs to the running back. If you are somehow playing Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, those are the guys you're looking at. But if we are playing cash games, I would say the mid-range is typically where we're going to be this week. I do like Mike Evans if you can afford him. If not, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Jordan Addison in cash games. Malik Neighbors if he gives it a go. Brian Thomas Jr. Calvin Ridley I like a lot at $5,500. I think he's very underpriced this weekend. I'll certainly have interest. I like the price tag on Jalen McMillan down here at $4,600. There's no CeeDee Lamb this week, so that opens up some value with either Brandon Cooks or Jalen Tolbert. But I think that Jake Ferguson would be the one that I had the most interest in that passing attack. And then, of course, if Joe Flacco ends up being the QB for the Indianapolis Colts, Josh Downs and Michael Pittman are way too cheap, and I think they would be in cash game consideration this week. Okay, back to the build. We have Sam Darnold, so like I just said, we got to get some of these pass catchers in. Well, we can play Justin Jefferson. The problem is, though, it's going to leave us with like no money, especially if we want to play Jordan Addison. I forget what the TJ Hawkinson price tag is. He's $4,500, so that would make it somewhat more feasible. But I'll be honest, we might have to like either just pivot off of Justin Jefferson and go with an Addison and a Hawkinson stack. And while this is still a chalkier team, not having Justin Jefferson in that, if he gets like 80 yards and a touchdown, I don't think that's going to be the death of you as long as Addison and TJ Hawkinson can still get theirs. So that's something to think about, and we could actually do that here. So we'll leave Jordan Addison in, Justin Jefferson out, and then we'll just run it back with one of the Green Bay Packer wide receivers. Christian Watson is currently questionable, so if he happens to miss, that's just a bump for Jaden Reed, it's a bump for Wicks, and it's also a bump for Romeo Doubs. So really any of those guys would be viable options. Doubs is only $5,100, so we could just plug him in, save a little cash, and we'll move on to tight end. And a lot of this is just basically, do I like the quarterback? Well then yeah, their tight end is viable. Cash games, honestly, you can make a case for most of these guys because I don't think there's really a standout. Jake Ferguson might just be the safest option here. The Cowboys are going to be trailing. There's no CeeDee Lamb. That vacates basically a 30% target share in that offense, and you take him out. I mean, Jalen Tolbert, yeah, Brandon Cooks is there. It's not pretty. Jake Ferguson should get peppered. I don't mind that, and they will be trailing. Okonkwo, however you say that name, Mason Rudolph does like him. You could look at him. Payne Durham, I do like with no Cade Otton. I mean, he got targets in the Sunday Night Football game. I don't see how that's going to change. I don't mind that whatsoever, but really it just comes down to, does it fit my stack? Yes, then I'll take it. So let's try finishing this lineup out. So at tight end, we're going to go with the double stack. We're going to play TJ Hawkinson, and we are praying, we are hoping that the Packers do everything they can to sell out, to stop Justin Jefferson. If Jefferson gets 20 points, I would call that a success for this specific build. If he gets 40, obviously you're cooked, but that's the risk you run sometimes. Anyway, $4,600 left. We have defense. I just usually plug in the cheapest one that I think won't get absolutely shelled. Maybe the Browns at home versus Tua. I mean, that's not overly concerning. You could look at the Raiders, though, $2,600. Derek Carr, that might be the best route to go. So then we're left with $5,600. And there's a couple of good spots here. Like, I know Calvin Ridley's really cheap at $5,500. Then at the flex for $5,700. That would leave you with guys like Adam Thielen, who I do like. Rashad White, although I don't really want to double up at the running back position on the same team. Khalil Shakur. Honestly, Adam Thielen wouldn't be too bad, and it actually doesn't correlate too bad with our lineup because we have Bucky Irving, assuming the Buccaneers run the ball, they're winning, then you kind of have Adam Thielen on the run back there. So honestly, I don't think that's a bad looking build. So we have Sam Darnold, double stack with Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. Running it back with Romeo Doubs. You have Bucky Irving and James Cook at running back position. Adam Thielen, Calvin Ridley Raiders as the fill-ins, and I do not hate that. And as always, we're going to run the optimizer here to see which players are populating. It's Friday. We're still waiting on some injury news, so pardon me if someone that ends up being out ends up in here, but we won't know the future, unfortunately. All right, so we have tight end ineligible at flex for this. We're going to run 10% randomness. I did remove the ownership projections. We're going to run quick stacks here, so we'll go QB with wide receiver and tight end. Obviously, if you are actually building, I would take more time. If you want to specify a couple things with rushing quarterbacks to where you don't need a stacking option like Josh Allen, You can play him naked. That is perfectly fine. That's the only thing we're going to do. Also, this might be a slate where you end up getting like so many like Buccaneers in one lineup or a lot of Minnesota Vikings. You could do a max from each team if you wanted. So actually, I don't mind doing that. So we'll do like 4. And we'll press OK here. And I'll see in a second. We're going to 20 lineups and we'll see what it spits out. And I'm back. And I'm seeing a lot of Baker Mayfield. I'm seeing a lot of Sam Darnold. And we should not be surprised about that. Let's pull up the player tab here. Aaron Jones getting jammed in. Dolphins defense at $3,200. I get it. DTR is just horrible. Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, Payne Durham. There's the Buccaneers onslaught right there. Evans, Durham, Baker Mayfield, and Jalen McMillan all in a row there. Bucky Irving not trailing too far behind. So let's look at some of these builds here. So we have Baker Mayfield up top. We do have Bucky Irving. We have Mike Evans and Payne Durham. 4-man stack there. And you have a double pass catcher at least. And honestly, I mean, if it's just a full onslaught, if the Buccaneers put up 35 points, there is a chance that entire offense couldn't have been optimal. And they're all pretty cheap. I mean, Mike Evans isn't overly cheap, but it's not like he's $9,000 or anything. Don't think we had a run back option in there if you wanted to. Oh, I guess we do with Chuba Hubbard. But I was looking at a pass catcher. Sam Darnold. We have Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson on there. So it looks like it went single stack and threw in Jones. So I guess it's kind of a double stack. I found a rogue Mason Rudolph lineup. We have Calvin Ridley mixed in there. But basically the guys you'd expect. Jordan Love we have with Christian Watson. But he's very questionable for this game. So if he ends up being out, obviously. It's one of those guys that we talked about. Team-wise, I'm assuming Tampa Bay's at the top. Minnesota, Miami. But I think a lot of that might be the defense. Probably some Devon Chan mixed in there as well. Tennessee, I'm assuming Calvin Ridley games, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Minnesota, Green Bay. Should not be surprised about that. Those are the 2 games that everyone's going to be playing. So it's basically like and it basically just feels like a 2-game slate. And then there's just a couple of other teams, players at least on the slate that people are going to get to. Keep in mind, I do not have Joe Flacco predicted in yet, and that could certainly boost some of the guys on the Indianapolis Colts as well. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you had a great Christmas. Happy New Year. Coming in a couple of days. So I hope everything was fantastic. We wish you all the best. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure you leave them down below. I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I'll see you all next time.